The divorce papers hit the mahogany table with a sharp slap that echoed through our dining room. My wife Rachel stood across from me, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the wood, her expression a calculated mixture of defiance and expectation. "There," she said, her voice dripping with theatrical authority. "Maybe this will finally get your attention, Mark." I looked down at the documents, then back up at her. This wasn't our first rodeo with dramatic gestures. Over the past 6 months, Rachel had become increasingly theatrical in her attempts to control our marriage. First, it was threats to move back to her mother's house. Then came the silent treatments that lasted for days. Last month, she packed a suitcase and left it by the front door for an entire week, never once actually leaving. This was just another act in her elaborate play. "I'm serious this time," she continued, folding her arms across her chest. The diamond bracelet I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary caught the light. "If you don't start putting me first, if you don't quit that ridiculous job and focus on us, on our lifestyle, then we're done." My ridiculous job was actually my passion. I ran a small non-profit that provided educational resources to underprivileged children. It didn't pay as much as my previous corporate position, but it fulfilled me in ways Rachel had never bothered to understand. She'd been complaining about it ever since I made the switch 2 years ago, despite the fact that we were still more than comfortable financially. "Rachel, can we talk about this rationally?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "No." She slammed her hand on the table. "I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of being married to someone who cares more about other people's children than his own wife. Sign these papers, or promise me right now that you'll go back to corporate law." I stared at her, and something shifted inside me. In that moment, I saw our entire marriage with painful clarity. The constant manipulation. The way she'd isolated me from my friends, always finding reasons why they weren't good enough for us. The guilt trips whenever I wanted to spend time on anything that didn't directly benefit her. The financial demands that never seemed to end, despite our substantial savings. I thought about the private investigator's report sitting in my office drawer upstairs. The one I'd commissioned 3 weeks ago when I'd found suspicious charges on our credit card. The one that documented her Thursday afternoon shopping trips that actually involved meeting with her personal trainer, Derek, at various hotels across the city. I hadn't confronted her yet. Part of me had been in denial, hoping there was some other explanation. But as I looked at her now, using divorce as a weapon to manipulate me, I felt something inside me snap. "You know what, Rachel?" I said calmly, reaching for the pen she'd so thoughtfully placed beside the papers. "You're absolutely right." Her eyes widened slightly. This wasn't the script she'd written in her head. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice losing some of its confidence. "I'm signing them." I flipped through the pages, initialing where required, my hand steady. "You said you wanted me to sign the divorce papers, so I'm signing them." "Mark, stop." She reached for the papers, but I pulled them away. "You're supposed to, this isn't, I didn't mean." "Didn't mean what?" I asked, signing the final page with a flourish. "You said you wanted a divorce. Here's your divorce." Her face had gone pale. "You're being ridiculous. I was just trying to make a point. And you made it beautifully." I gathered the papers and stood up. "I'll make sure these get filed first thing Monday morning." "Mark." Her voice rose to a shriek. "You can't just, we need to talk about this." "I thought you were tired of talking," I said, heading toward my office. Behind me, I heard her sink into a chair, and for the first time in months, I felt free. Rachel didn't emerge from the bedroom for the rest of Friday evening. I spent the time in my office, organizing documents I'd been quietly preparing for weeks. Every bank statement, every piece of correspondence, every receipt that told the real story of our marriage. My lawyer, Tom Harrison, had advised me to be thorough if things ever reached this point. I just never expected Rachel to hand me the perfect opportunity on a silver platter. Saturday morning, I woke early and went for a run, something I hadn't done in months because Rachel always complained about me abandoning her on weekend mornings. The autumn air was crisp, the neighborhood quiet, and my mind clearer than it had been in years. By the time I returned, Rachel was in the kitchen, dressed immaculately as always, her makeup flawless despite the circumstances. "We need to talk," she announced, her tone attempting to regain the authority from the night before. "Sure." I poured myself coffee and sat down at the kitchen island, deliberately not offering her any. She noticed. "Mark, about yesterday. I think we both said things in the heat of the moment." "I didn't say much of anything," I replied. "I just signed the papers you gave me. Papers I clearly didn't expect you to sign." Her frustration was breaking through her composed exterior. It was supposed to be a wake-up call, not. "Not what?" "Not me calling your bluff." I took a sip of coffee. "Rachel, let me ask you something. Did you actually have a lawyer draw up those papers, or did you print them off the internet?" She looked away, and I had my answer. "Thought so. The thing is, even if they're not legal documents yet, they told me everything I needed to know. You were willing to weaponize divorce to manipulate me. That's not a marriage, that's emotional terrorism." "That's not fair," she protested. "I've been unhappy, and you've been completely oblivious. What was I supposed to do?" "Oh, I don't know. Maybe have an honest conversation? Go to marriage counseling? But that would require you to actually examine your own behavior, wouldn't it?" Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm tired, Rachel. I'm tired of the games, the manipulation, the constant demands. Do you know what I realized last night? I can't remember the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer. I can't remember the last time you did something kind for me without expecting something in return." "That's not true." But her voice lacked conviction. "When was the last time?" I challenged her. "Go ahead, tell me." She opened her mouth, then closed it, then tried again. I'm supportive of you all the time." "No, you're not. You're supportive when I do what you want. There's a difference." I set down my coffee mug. "But here's what really matters, Rachel. I'm done pretending. Those papers might have been a manipulation tactic for you, but for me, they were liberation." "You don't mean that." She moved toward me, her hand reaching for mine. "We've built a life together. 7 years of marriage doesn't just disappear because of one argument." I gently pulled my hand away. "You're right. It doesn't disappear because of one argument. It disappears because of 7 years of slowly eroding trust, respect, and genuine affection." "Mark, I'm not finished." My voice remained calm, but firm. "I've spent months, years, really, trying to figure out why I felt so unhappy despite having everything I should want. A beautiful home, financial security, a wife everyone said I was lucky to have. And then yesterday, when you put those papers down, it hit me. I wasn't unhappy because of what I had. I was unhappy because of what I didn't have, a real partner." Rachel's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "Let me ask you something else," I interrupted. "Where were you last Thursday afternoon?" The question landed like a bomb. Her face went from red to white in an instant. I was shopping. You know I go shopping on Thursdays." "Do you?" I pulled out my phone and opened a folder of photos. Because I have some interesting pictures that suggest otherwise. I showed her the first image, her car parked outside the Riverside Hotel downtown. Then another, her entering the lobby with Derek, her personal trainer, his hand on the small of her back. "That's not. We were just," she stammered. "Save it," I said, putting my phone away. "I have 3 weeks worth of documentation. Hotels, restaurants, the apartment he rents across town that you visited at least 8 times." She sank into a chair, all pretense gone. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, her carefully constructed world visibly crumbling around her. I watched dispassionately, surprised by my own lack of emotional turmoil. Perhaps I'd mourned this marriage long before yesterday. "How long have you known?" she finally whispered. "About Derek?" 3 weeks. "About there being someone?" "I suspected for about 4 months. You became different, more critical of me, more distant, but also more concerned with your appearance. Classic signs, apparently. This is my fault. She looked up, and I saw a flash of the old Rachel, the one who could twist any situation to make herself the victim. You drove me to this. You stopped paying attention to me, stopped caring about. Stop. My voice cut through her building tirade. I'm not doing this dance. You made a choice to cheat. Own it. Don't insult both of us by trying to blame me for your decisions. She stared at me, perhaps seeing for the first time that her usual tactics wouldn't work anymore. What are you going to do? She asked, her voice small. I already told you. I'm filing those divorce papers. Well, actually, I'm filing the real ones my lawyer prepared. Yours were cute, but legally insufficient. Your lawyer. She looked stunned. When did you? 2 weeks ago, after I got the investigator's report. Tom's been helping me understand my options. I pulled out a folder from the drawer where I'd placed it that morning. The good news for you is that I'm not interested in revenge. The bad news is that I'm not interested in being generous either. I slid the folder across to her. These are the terms I'm proposing. The house is in my name. My inheritance from my father paid for it. You'll need to move out. We'll split our joint savings 50-50, which is more than fair considering I've been the primary breadwinner throughout our marriage. My retirement accounts and the non-profit remain mine. Your car is paid off, so that's yours. I'll give you 3 months to find a place and relocate. Rachel flipped through the papers, her expression growing more incredulous with each page. This is insane. I'm entitled to much more than this. I've spent 7 years building this life with you. Actually, you've spent 7 years spending my money and criticizing my choices. There's a difference. And before you think about fighting this, you should know that adultery still matters in this state. Tom assures me that your affair with Derek will significantly impact any judge's decision about asset division. You wouldn't. But her eyes betrayed her uncertainty. Try me. I'm done being manipulated, Rachel. If you want to make this ugly, I have documentation of everything. Hotel charges on credit cards I pay for. Text messages. Yes, I managed to recover some of those. Witness statements from people who've seen you two together. Do you really want all of that aired in court? She slumped in her chair. I can't believe you're doing this. Funny, that's exactly what I thought when you put those fake divorce papers on the table yesterday. The difference is, you expected me to fold. You've always expected me to fold. I stood up, feeling taller somehow. But I'm calling your bluff with a real hand, Rachel. This marriage is over. What about counseling? She tried desperately. We could try therapy, work through this. To what end? So you can learn better manipulation techniques? So I can learn to accept being treated like an ATM with feelings? I shook my head. No. Some things are broken beyond repair. This is one of them. I'll fight you on this, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I'll get my own lawyer, and they'll tell you the same thing mine told me. With evidence of adultery and the prenup we signed. Yes, remember that? The one you didn't bother reading carefully because you were so excited about the wedding. You're not in a strong position. Take my offer. It's fair, and it's final. Rachel's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, and I saw Derek's name on the screen. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. You should probably tell him it's over, I said. Or don't. Honestly, Rachel, what you do now isn't my concern anymore. Just be out by the end of January. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, and for the first time, I heard genuine fear in her voice. That's not my problem to solve. You're a resourceful woman. You managed to coordinate an affair for months. I'm sure you can figure out an apartment search. I headed toward the stairs, then paused. Oh, and Rachel? The locks are being changed on Monday. I'll have your new key delivered to wherever you're staying. I think it's best if we minimize contact from here on out. You're throwing me out of my own house. My house, I corrected. And yes, consider it the consequence of your actions finally catching up with you. As I climbed the stairs, I heard her burst into tears. Once, that sound would have destroyed me, would have sent me running back to comfort her and apologize for whatever I'd done wrong. But now, I recognized those tears for what they were: frustration that her game had ended, not genuine remorse for her actions. I had work to do, phone calls to make, and a future to plan. For the first time in years, it was a future I was actually looking forward to. By Sunday evening, Rachel had moved her essentials to her mother's house. The speed of her departure told me everything I needed to know. She'd already been planning an exit strategy, probably with Derek waiting in the wings. My signing those papers had simply accelerated her timeline and removed her control over the narrative. Monday morning, I met Tom at his office. He reviewed the documents with his characteristic thoroughness, nodding approvingly at several points. "You've done your homework," he said, looking up over his reading glasses. "Most people come to me emotional wrecks with no documentation. You've got everything organized like a legal brief." 7 years as a corporate attorney, I replied. "Some habits stick." About that, Tom leaned back in his chair. "I did some additional research over the weekend, like you asked. The financial irregularities you noticed? They're more extensive than you thought." He pulled out a thick file. "Your wife has been systematically moving money out of your joint accounts for the past 18 months. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger immediate attention, but it adds up to about $47,000. My stomach dropped. $47,000? Where did it go? A separate account in her name only. She opened it 2 years ago. Tom slid bank statements across the desk. "There's more. She took out a credit card you didn't know about, using your credit history. She's accumulated about $32,000 in debt on it." Jesus. I ran my hand through my hair. Can she do that? Legally? Unfortunately, in a marriage, it's complicated. The good news is that since you have evidence she was hiding this and spending on her affair, look at these charges: luxury hotels, expensive dinners, gifts from jewelry stores. A judge will likely assign that debt entirely to her. And the money she moved? That, we can fight for. It's marital funds, and she moved them without your knowledge or consent. I'd say we have a strong case for getting at least 60 to 70% of it back, plus we can argue she owes you for half the credit card debt she incurred. I sat back, processing this information. The Rachel I'd married, or thought I'd married, seemed to have been a complete fabrication. How did I miss all of this? "Because she's smart and you trusted her," Tom said simply. "It's not a character flaw to trust your spouse. That's what marriage is supposed to be built on. She's the one who violated that trust." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Rachel. "We need to talk. This is all moving too fast. Can we please slow down?" I showed Tom, who snorted. Translation: her lawyer told her she's in trouble, and she wants to negotiate. Don't respond yet. Let her sweat. "There's something else," I said. "Something I haven't told you yet." Tom raised an eyebrow. "The non-profit I run? Rachel's been telling everyone, her friends, her family, even mine, that it's failing. That I'm wasting my trust fund and inheritance on a lost cause. She's been systematically trying to turn people against my work. Is the non-profit failing? Far from it. We just secured a major grant, $300,000 over 3 years. We're expanding to 2 more cities next quarter. I got the news last week and didn't tell her because..." I trailed off, realizing the truth. Because I knew she'd find a way to ruin it. Tom made notes. "This paints a picture of a pretty systematic effort to undermine you. Why would she do that? Control, I think. As long as everyone thought my work was a failure, they'd pressure me to go back to corporate law. More money, more status, more for her to spend." I felt anger building. She didn't just betray me with the affair. She's been trying to sabotage my entire life's purpose. "Well," Tom closed his folder with satisfaction, "that actually helps us. It shows a pattern of manipulation and deceit. Judges don't like that. How do you feel about filing a restraining order?" "What? Why would I need that?" "Because people like Rachel, when they lose control, sometimes escalate. The tears and manipulation didn't work. Now she's trying bargaining. If that doesn't work, we might see anger. I want you protected. As if on cue, my phone rang. Rachel. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. Tom nodded at the phone. See what I mean? That's already escalation. She's used to you answering immediately. The calls continued throughout our meeting. By the time I left Tom's office, I had 7 missed calls and 3 voicemails. I listened to them in my car. The first was tearful. Mark, please, we need to talk. You can't just throw away our marriage like this. The second was angry. You're being completely unreasonable. My lawyer says you can't force me out of the house. I'm coming back tomorrow, and you can't stop me. The third was desperate. I ended things with Derek. It was a mistake. I see that now. Please, just give me a chance to explain everything. I love you. I deleted all 3 and drove to my office at the non-profit. My assistant, Jennifer, looked up as I entered. Everything okay, boss? You look stressed. Family stuff, I said vaguely. How are we looking for the board meeting tomorrow? All set. Everyone's excited about the grant announcement. She paused. Mark, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you seem lighter somehow. Like a weight's been lifted. I smiled. Maybe it has been. The rest of the day passed in productive work, the kind that filled me with purpose rather than drained me. Around 5, I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Harrison. A woman's voice, professional and cool. This is Mark Harrison, yes. My name is Patricia Chen. I'm representing Rachel Harrison in your divorce proceedings. She's asked me to reach out about negotiating a settlement. So quickly? That was fast. My client is anxious to resolve this matter amicably. Translation: Rachel's panicking. She's willing to discuss terms. All negotiations go through my attorney, Tom Harrison, no relation. I'm sure he's expecting your call. Actually, my client was hoping you two might speak directly, without lawyers complicating things. I laughed. No, absolutely not. That's exactly the kind of manipulation I'm done with. Everything goes through counsel from now on. There was a pause. Mr. Harrison, I think you should know that my client is considering filing claims of emotional abuse and financial control. Is she? I kept my voice steady despite my anger. Then I think you should know I have documentation of her affair, her secret bank account, her hidden credit card debt, and her systematic attempts to undermine my career and reputation. Please advise your client that if she wants to make this ugly, I'm prepared to respond in kind. Another pause. I see. I'll relay your message. You do that. And Ms. Chen? Tell Rachel the offer I made stands for 1 week. After that, I'm pursuing full recovery of all misappropriated funds and seeking to hold her responsible for all debt she incurred. Her choice. I hung up and immediately called Tom to warn him. He was delighted. She's already desperate, he said. This is good for us. Very good. That night, alone in the house that finally felt like mine again, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. 7 years of marriage ending wasn't exactly what I'd intended when I bought it, but somehow it felt right. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Rachel, "You're going to regret this." I blocked her number and raised my glass to the empty room. "I don't think I will," I said to no one in particular, and took a long, satisfying drink. 3 months later, I stood in what was legally and definitively my house, watching the last of Rachel's belongings disappear into a moving truck. The divorce had been finalized 2 weeks prior, quicker than expected, thanks to Rachel's lawyer eventually convincing her that fighting would only make things worse for her. The final settlement was close to what I'd originally proposed. She got half of our liquid savings, her car, and her personal belongings. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and the non-profit. Most importantly, she was ordered to pay back $35,000 of the money she'd hidden, plus she was solely responsible for the credit card debt. The judge had not been sympathetic to her claims of needing financial security when presented with evidence of her affair and financial deception. Tom stood beside me, holding a folder with all the final paperwork. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, free." I watched the truck pull away. I keep expecting to feel sad or regretful, but I just feel relieved. That's normal when you've been in a manipulative relationship. Your body recognizes freedom even when your mind is still processing. He handed me the folder. "Everything's signed, sealed, and delivered. You're officially a single man again. Thanks for everything, Tom. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have. You just would have had a harder time." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Now go live your life. And maybe next time, pick someone who actually appreciates you." After he left, I walked through the house, room by room. Rachel's absence was everywhere. Empty spaces where her furniture had been, lighter patches on the walls where her artwork had hung, the closet in the master bedroom suddenly cavernous without her extensive wardrobe. But it didn't feel empty. It felt full of possibility. My phone rang. "Jennifer from the non-profit. Mark, I know you're dealing with personal stuff, but I had to call. The mayor's office just reached out. They want to feature us in the city's education initiative announcement next month. This is huge visibility for the program." I smiled. "That's fantastic news. Let's schedule a meeting to discuss logistics." "Will do. And Mark, some of us at the office have noticed you've been going through a tough time. We're here if you need anything." After we hung up, I sat on my back porch, the one I'd built with my own hands 3 years ago, despite Rachel complaining it was a waste of time and money. The spring evening was perfect. The garden I'd maintained blooming despite her insistence that we hire a landscaper. I'd spent so much of my marriage trying to be the person Rachel wanted me to be. Trying to earn enough to satisfy her desires, trying to be attentive enough to prevent her complaints, trying to be whatever would finally make her happy. I'd lost myself in the process. My phone buzzed with an email notification. I almost ignored it, but the subject line caught my attention. "Thank you from Sarah's family." I opened it. Sarah was one of the kids in our program, a bright 12-year-old who'd been struggling in school until we'd provided her with tutoring and resources. The email was from her mother. "Dear Mr. Harrison, I wanted you to know that Sarah got straight A's this semester for the first time in her life. She talks about the non-profit constantly and says you've helped her see that education can be her way out of poverty. Thank you for believing in her when no one else did. You're changing lives, and we're forever grateful." I read it 3 times, feeling tears prick my eyes. This was why I'd left corporate law. This was what Rachel had never understood, that some things mattered more than money or status or maintaining appearances. Over the next few weeks, I slowly began rebuilding my life. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from during my marriage, guys from law school, former colleagues, people Rachel had deemed not sophisticated enough for us. It turned out they were exactly sophisticated enough, genuine, supportive, and happy to have me back. I started running regularly again, joined a book club, even began taking a cooking class on Thursday evenings. Thursdays, the day Rachel had used for her affair, became my favorite day of the week, symbolically reclaimed for my own growth and enjoyment. One Saturday afternoon, I ran into Derek at the gym. He tried to avoid eye contact, but I walked right up to him. "Derek." He looked uncomfortable. "Mark. Look, man, about everything." "I don't care," I said simply. "You did me a favor, actually. You helped me see what my marriage really was." He blinked. "That's not the reaction I expected." "What did you expect? That I'd be devastated? Angry?" I shook my head. "I was, for about a day. Then I realized you two deserve each other. You're both users. The difference is, I'm no longer being used." "We're not together anymore," he said quietly. "She was, a lot." I laughed. "Yeah, she was. Good luck with that." As I walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. 6 months after Rachel had dropped those divorce papers on the table, I attended the Mayor's Education Initiative announcement. The non-profit was featured prominently, and I gave a speech about the importance of investing in children's futures. Afterward, a woman approached me, late 30s, warm smile, intelligent eyes. "That was a beautiful speech," she said. "I'm Diana Walsh. I run the literacy program across town. I'd love to talk about possible collaboration between our organizations." We talked for an hour, then exchanged business cards. As I drove home that evening, I realized I was smiling, genuinely, freely smiling in a way I hadn't in years. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I checked it at a red light. It was Rachel. "I heard about the mayor's event. Congratulations. I always knew you'd be successful with the non-profit. I'm sorry I didn't support you better." I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Some apologies come too late, and some bridges are better left burned. That night, I sat on my back porch with a glass of wine, looking at the garden I'd nurtured, the home I'd built, the life I was reclaiming. My phone showed an email from Diana, suggesting lunch to discuss our collaboration. I smiled and typed a response. Rachel had tried to scare me with divorce papers, thinking I'd bend to her one more time. Instead, I'd signed them and discovered something she never expected. I didn't need her to be happy. In fact, I was happier without her. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her manipulation tactic, meant to control me, had freed me instead. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you who they really are. And sometimes, the scariest thing you can do is call their bluff and walk away. As I sipped my wine under the stars, I realized I wasn't just surviving the end of my marriage, I was thriving because of it. Rachel had spent years trying to make me smaller, dimmer, more controllable. Now, without her weight on my shoulders, I was finally becoming the person I was meant to be. The divorce papers had been meant as a threat. Instead, they'd been a gift, the gift of freedom, the gift of truth, the gift of a new beginning. I raised my glass to the night sky, to second chances, and to the courage it takes to sign your name and mean it. "Thank you, Rachel," I whispered, "for setting me free." And with that, I closed that chapter of my life and turned the page to whatever came next, finally writing my own story on my own terms.